watching News Central Television. It's time for news beyond the continent. I'm your host, Judith Atibi. And we start with a statement stirring both surprise and controversy as U.S. President Donald Trump has suggested that Canada becoming the 53rd state of the United States would be, in his words, a wonderful marriage. The comment came during highly anticipated talks at the White House with Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney amid rising tensions over tariffs and speculation about annexation. Responding firmly, Prime Minister Carney dismissed the idea outright, declaring that Canada is not for sale and wouldn't be for sale ever. The exchange underscores ongoing strain in U.S. Canada relations despite efforts to resolve trade disputes and strengthen bilateral ties.
I do feel it's much better for Canada, but we're not going to be discussing that unless somebody wants to discuss it. I think that there are tremendous benefits to the Canadian citizens, tremendously lower taxes, free military, which honestly we give you essentially anyway because we're protecting Canada if you ever had a problem. But I think it would really be a wonderful marriage because it's two places that get along very well. They like each other a lot.
Well, if I may, as you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale.
That's true.
We're sitting in one right now, Buckingham Palace that you visited as well.
That's true.
And having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale ever. But the opportunity is in the partnership and what we can build together, and we have done.
And joining us now to discuss this further is Cyprian Edward-Ekpo. He's the Director General, Institute of Law, Research and Development of the United Nations, and he joins us live virtually. Mr. Cyprian Edward-Ekpo, many thanks for doing this with us. I mean, let's just get started, shall we? I mean, given the rising tensions over trade tariffs between the U.S. and Canada, how does the Institute interpret President Trump's annexation remark within the broader context of international economic cohesion?
Yeah, well, and a lot of people understanding the personality of President Donald Trump, certain remarks before this time around, a lot of people do take it in serious and placing it in the realm of jokes. But as we keep going, we understand the authenticity of most of his remarks. Personally, in my view, I have seen the Canada and United States over the years and the relationship that has spanned decades. The relationship between the United States and Canada has been characterized by close economic, security and political ties, often described as unique and complex partnership. They share a lot of bonds, and they are like cousins. And I do believe if the proposal of President Donald Trump was made in a well-managed manner, like having some level of extensive consultation with the citizens of Canada, that could probably have led to a plebiscite or something like the Canadian citizens deciding whether they want to be part of the United States. Because if you look at it quite well, sometimes you really find it difficult to differentiate the United States and Canada in terms of cultural values and political values, and they have been too closely tied and operating like cousins.
Right.
Valuing each the interest of the other.
Okay.
Over decades. So I think if the approach was that I want to consult you, Canada, do you think we should make it the United States and Canada much larger country? Maybe the citizens of Canada would have said, okay, let's vote for that. But I think the approach came in form of without consultation, and then the people of Canada, I do think they took it as an insult.
All right.
And that could have led to the breakdown.
Okay.
Or in the indication. Yes.
Now, does international law recognize economic pressure such as tariffs as a legitimate tool in negotiations about sovereignty or even territorial alignment?
Come again?
I was asking about, alignment, territorial alignment. Given the tactics that President Donald Trump is using, does international law recognize economic pressure such as tariffs as a legitimate tool in negotiations about sovereignty or territorial alignment? Because as you rightfully said, these two states are almost like cousins. Up north, they have bilateral ties that goes far as decades. They are political allies. Why strong arm them with their sovereignty and territorial alignment with tariff wars?
Yeah, within the framework of international law, every country and the rights of the sovereignty rights of every country has to be respected. The international law recognizes the alignment in terms of economic partnership, trade, and all that. And you cannot forcefully annex a country, another country to the other country. But a country that have maintained details of cultural understanding and harmony, I do not see anything wrong if they decide and say that we want to become one country and make it liar, instead of maintaining a diplomatic relations. Let us make ourselves one country. United States in the first place, the continent that turned to a particular country. Remember, the United States Constitution was different territorial entities coming together to form a particular country. So that's not it's not alien to international law, to the framework of international law. Even the United Nations Charter is not alien to it at all. But the approach shouldn't be like Russia going to annex part of Ukraine. No, the approach should be in a very constructive, harmonious way. There should be a extensive consultation between the government of this country and not between the government to the citizens. So at the end of it, the citizens that determine by casting a vote whether they are to join or align, go beyond diplomatic relations to form or become part of the other country, or becoming one of one, whether they're changing their name or their identity. The citizen determines that, not by forceful means or by threat or by coercion. Once that's happened, once that approach emerged, it violates the principle of international law and the cardinal principle of the United Nations Charter, which mandate countries to respect the territorial integrity of other countries.
At this point,
and the sovereignty right of the other countries.
At this point, I have to ask about the role that the Institute and the United Nations, your institute, for example, institutes like yours and the United Nations play in ensuring that economic disputes do not escalate into threats against national sovereignty.
All right, now we are working on a proposal, a draft framework proposal for recommendation to the United Nations and even to the United States government and other countries. What we think should be for the betterment of the citizenry of the world, because recently or lately we have found that there has been a lot of chaotic dismantling of diplomatic ties since the beginning of this year. And some of these things are very good proposals. Even some of the proposals made by President Donald Trump are good, but the approach, we think the approach are being miscommunicated or not well understood by the other parties, or the approach of which they will release rather turn it to confrontational. So we are working on a proposal for presentation to see how such proposal could be adopted in order to assist in our quota of contribution to assist in maintaining and sustaining a harmonious trade relationship between countries. especially the United States and the European countries and Canada, which the foreground of human rights, universal human rights values. And it is regrettable in these countries that always stand together to protect human rights, stand against dictatorship around the world, stand against oppressions, are not working together. It automatically affects the world and creates series of problems that ought to have been addressed. So when they concentrate on battling with trade war, instead of their usual alignment and unity for the protection of universal values of human rights and peace around the world, it becomes a problem that affects the entire world.
All right. Mr. Cyril, I must say thank you for taking out the time to join us. Cyril Edward-Ekpo just giving us a bit of insight following comments and the meeting of Canadian Prime Minister and, of course, the U.S. President Donald Trump.